Hey, Alexandra.
Oh, hi there. Hello. I'm sick. I just sent you an email like 30 seconds ago, like
Okay.
saying, "Oh my gosh, I don't see anybody on," but like you're on now, so I was
Yeah,
worried I had
and
something incorrect. So,
typically no one's here until really the time class is going to begin. So this isn't that strange,
okay, good. I just want to make sure that like I didn't arrive late because I couldn't connect. So,
right? No problem. So Zach typically has a problem getting into his room on Wednesdays in time, and yeah, the Winchester Thurston room usually comes on right around 10. So I'm not concerned just yet.
okay.
Okay.
Oh, also, since you're here, I also wanted to let you know. So, I on April the 20th, I got accepted to places and they offered me a visit to campus. So
Good.
I think April the 20th is so far probably going to be the same day, the 13th or the 20th, that they're going to have the admissions thing. So I was
Okay.
wondering if I could maybe move it to another day, if that's possible.
You mean your in-class presentation? Right.
Yeah.
Uh, okay, let's see. Wonder what the easiest thing to do here would
Yeah,
be.
I like remember thinking I was like, oh my gosh, I already told him the 20th, but I'm probably going to be like out of the state then. So,
Oh, what about, oh, you know what? Actually, if you do Wednesday the 15th,
uh-huh.
because the 20th was the date of the first thing you suggested, and I let you know that Jacob had already selected that.
Oh, he selected that day too. Oh, I thought it was just a topic. So, whoops, my
Oh,
bad.
no, no. So yeah, so the date and topic for now are going together because we're on schedule.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
that's not always true, but yeah. So if you could do Wednesday the 15th, uh,
Oh, okay. Yeah, that I think, let's see, the 20th. Yeah, Wednesday the 15th. I think I can do that. I'm being a little more careful so I don't say the wrong thing, but yeah, Wednesday the 15th will. And do I have to change the topic now or does it still correspond?
it would still be utilitarianism.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
wanted
No,
to
that's
switch
good.
that over. Great, thank you.
Um, yeah. So if that works, let's just do that.
Okay.
And um, if you need to change it, just let me know.
Okay.
Um, yeah, you're not locked in. Although there aren't too many more options left.
Yeah.
We don't have that
Definitely.
long left here.
Yeah, I think that'll work well, so
Okay, good, good.
cross fingers. Yeah.
Cool.
There was like a school visit that day, but it was like from like Wednesday through like Friday, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna miss too many days of school, so I like moved it to the 20th and or the 13th. So
Cool. Do you where is your where is the
um,
visit that you're going
it's
to?
in Texas, so it's Rice. So
Cool.
yeah,
Are you
very
excited about
exciting.
that?
What was
Yeah.
that?
I just was asking if that's exciting and you just said it
Oh
was.
yeah,
So,
really very exciting. So
was that one of your like I don't know, top
yeah.
places?
Oh
Oh,
yeah,
great.
yeah.
Fantastic. Well,
Thank you.
congratulations. That's good news. I'm just
Thank
thinking
you.
back. I, yeah, I my going to college from high school for me was not really that exciting. Like I didn't go very far, and it wasn't that I don't know. I just don't think I applied to very many places
Mhm.
out of high school. Um, but then from college to graduate school, that was very exciting, and I remember very clearly the day that I got accepted into grad school
Wow,
at the University of Pennsylvania, and
that's
that was pretty
amazing.
cool. So
Yeah, that's
that's a
a
big
really good school too.
yeah, and so I assume that you did you grow up in the Pittsburgh area?
I did grow up in the Pittsburgh area.
So this is going to be a big change for you if you end up going to Rice.
Definitely. Yeah, that's why I'm like I wish it was like closer, but it's still a good city. So
Yeah. Hey, Zach. So,
Hello.
doing all right? How about you?
I'm doing great.
Okay. So I don't know where Alexandra's colleagues are here, but
I think they might be just like setting it up. Like I came in like 15 minutes earlier to set it up.
oh, I see.
So
Okay.
it was like ready when
Well,
we had to go.
okay. So my title slide here today, I don't know if you can tell it, that's supposed to be a picture of bedrock. Um, since some of the issues that we're dealing with here have to do with what happens at the end of inquiry in a way when we continually push the attempt to give reasons, to give justifications for our belief, and eventually um, we we run out of justifications that we can give. And Wittgenstein, the great 20th century philosopher, had this I think it was in the Bogosian reading actually, the saying about how at some point you hit bedrock and your spade is turned. You can dig no farther. You can go no farther in the process of giving justifications. And the question is, if that's right, if justification comes to an end, what do we make of that fact? Um, should we think with subjectivists and relativists that the fact that things come to an end means that there really is no such thing as objective justification, or can we go with someone like Nagel or Bogosian and uphold the objectivity of reason? So I'll just get going and hope that the Winchester Thurston folks join us soon. I guess I can just say Jacob and Sam. Okay, so just to remind you, we've got these three views about knowledge that are kind of on the table. We really haven't talked about subjectivism that much. I will today a little bit. Um, Subjectivism being the sort of the radical alternative to the objectivist view that when you know something, what it is that you know is something that is true or is about a world that is the way that it is, independently of how we think of it. And likewise, whatever it is that makes it true that we know that fact is itself something that holds in this kind of objective, mind-independent way. Subjectivists, here they go. Here they are. Hold the extreme opposite. There is no such thing as objective truth. There is no knowledge, only opinion. And relativism tries to steer a middle course. Tries to say, well, we should retain the claim that we know some things. We sometimes are justified, but that justification, that knowledge has to be confined to some kind of conceptual framework or epistemic system. Let's see. Okay, this is just covering stuff we did before. It's important to distinguish between global and local relativism. Right, global relativism is a view about all facts or all claims. Right, no truth is objectively true. Nothing is an objective fact. All facts are relative in some way. That contrasts with these local varieties of relativism, like the views about moral facts or political facts. You might say that you might be a relativist about those sorts of things, while still maintaining that some other facts, like facts about mathematics or logic or scientific facts, are not relative to conceptual frameworks. Okay. Good. So, okay. So much for review. So, Jacob, is it just you?
Yeah, I saw Sam today. I don't know where he is.
Okay. All right. No problem. Do you mind sort of zooming in on yourself a little bit more?
Wait, let me turn on the lights. I can't even.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're kind of the shadowy corner figure right now.
Hey, I'm sorry.
No, that's all right.
Yeah.
Looking a little better. Now you're not at least corner lurker.
There we go.
Okay, cool. So are you good with this little bit of review? You ready to move along? Okay. Okay, cool. So on then to Nagel, and I think it's best to read Nagel as arguing against subjectivism, actually, or global relativism. That really is his target. So the book that this chapter is from, and actually this reminds me, I wanted to sort of advocate having a look at both of these books. So this is Thomas Nagel's book, The Last Word. Great book. It's not too thick. But what he does in this book is, so these initial chapters, which we're reading, are concerned with this kind of global attack on reason, this very general attack on reason. And then in the rest of the book, he focuses on these more local. Uh-oh. What's happening?
Yeah.
I think I'm being hijacked. There we go.
Wait, Alexandra was sharing something, I think.
Okay. Wow.
And Alexandra's also muted. You're
That's
muted,
okay.
Alexandra.
Yeah, you're muted right now, Alexandra. So if you want to speak
sorry.
at some point, just unmute. It's okay. You can
Clicked
be
the wrong
muted.
thing. I was like trying to minimize the screen.
No problem. It's interesting that you were able to share it so easily. Now, am I still sharing my screen? I think I'm not.
No.
Okay.
Here's Sam. Hi. Sorry.
Hey, Sam.
Here we are.
Here we go. Wow, that was weird. Sandra, you wielded greater power over the class than I thought you would have. Anyway, so after Nagel talks about these sort of general threats to reason, he goes on and deals with more local varieties of skepticism. So he talks about language, logic, science, and ethics. So, and a final chapter on naturalism and religion. So The Last Word, highly recommend it. If you're interested in this stuff, read it. It's good. It's good stuff. And then, of course, Boghossian's book, Fear of Knowledge. Great little, really little book. 140 pages. Nice. Highly recommend. If you're interested in this kind of general epistemology, both those books are really good. Okay, so yeah, in these early chapters, Nagel's really talking about these very global threats to reason, and he focuses on these claims. Everything is subjective. There is only opinion. There are no objective facts. Very general claims like this. And so, just to make sure we're on the same page here, anyone want to say a little bit about what Nagel's point is regarding these claims? What's the basic point he makes about such statements, such very general statements? Yeah, Zach.
Well, some of them are self-defeating, like the statement everything is subjective. That implies that the statement everything is subjective is also subjective, which means that it might be wrong, which means objectivism might be right.
Right. So applied to themselves, they're self-undermining, right? And so there's a sense in which they couldn't be true, or at least they couldn't be the sorts of claims that they purport to be, right? So there are no objective facts. If that were true, then that itself would not be an objective fact, which either undermines it, or at least, depending on the intent of the speaker, makes it not the sort of claim that it purports to be. And in particular, leaves you with no reason to suppose that there aren't some objective facts. The most extreme version of this sort of problem is the sentence, every sentence is false, right? That sentence cannot itself be be true. It must be false, in which case some sentences are true. And that actually is one of the sentences that's got to be true. Right. So good. These very general relativistic or subjectivist claims look like we can't make sense of them. They're self-undermining. They are false if true. Now, Zach, you had a kind of interesting question about this, though. Did you want to? You know what I'm talking about?
So my problem was that it's kind of taking the subjectivist argument and twisting it in a way that the subjectivists don't mean. When they say every belief is subjective, they're not referring to the belief about every belief being subjective. They're pretty much referring to all other beliefs, or at the very least most other beliefs. So I think what they would say is that there's kind of a different standard, or that these statements that everything is objective, it's a special case where it doesn't necessarily undergo this problem.
Yeah. So this is a good move, a good thing to raise, but I think it raises some questions. Jacob, why don't you?
I know. I think it just sounds kind of weird thinking about it that way, that you're going to give this one thing an exception to the rule. I think it makes the argument weaker no matter what you do, even if you do say that it is a special case.
Right. So good. Thanks, Jacob. I think that's a nice response to this move. Is that so? If the subjectivist tries to say, oh, well, this is the exception to what I'm saying, then you have to ask, well, what's so special about this particular sentence, and what are the grounds for this distinction between this particular kind of sentence and all these other ones? What's so special about this case? Why is it that this sort of sentence can be exempt from subjectivity when all these others can't? And I think it's very hard to draw that distinction in a plausible way. Okay. Yeah. Good. Yeah. So actually, I don't want to get too into this, but there is a way, Zach, in which the kind of idea that you have there is employed in modern logic to avoid certain paradoxes. So the so-called liar paradox, this sentence is false. You guys know about the liar paradox? That sentence, if it's true, then it's false. And if it's false, then it's true. So whichever truth value you try to give it, it seems to switch to the other one. One way to avoid that paradox is to distinguish languages. So there's the base level language, and there's a meta level language, and then actually there's a whole sequence of meta languages. So in the base language, we just have sentences that are about the world, and then in the meta language, you have sentences about the sentences. So when you employ this kind of hierarchy of languages, there's no one language in which you can formulate the sentence, this sentence is false. You always have to have a sentence from a language at one level, and then in the language above that, you say of that sentence that it is true or false. Okay, so you can never have a sentence at a single level that says this sentence is false or this sentence is true. So there is a way to kind of make use of that. You might say, well, maybe all sentences of one level are false, even though the meta level sentences are true. But I think still Jacob's question is a good one. Like, what's so special about those upper level, the meta language statements or whatever, that would make them exempt from something like subjectivity, or make them exempt from subjectivity. That's what I meant to say. So, but it is interesting that general kind of move is used to avoid paradoxes in logic. So, okay, all right, good. So, right? So that's the basic. In some ways, Nagel's paper is largely just a meditation on this general point that global radical subjectivist views, global radical relativist views end up being self-undermining. But to go into a little more detail about what Nagel's case is, so he well, wait a minute, hold on, let me just make sure I'm not forgetting something here. He does make the point at a number of places, or maybe this is where I want to. So Jacob, you asked about whether relativism and objectivism could be compatible.
I don't know. It's kind of just a fleeting thought, but could they? I mean, like, if you say that, if you have local relativism, wouldn't that make the rest of objectivism also local, because it can't be global? So.
Oh, well, okay. What you can have is you could be an objectivist about certain claims while being a local relativist about others. But what I don't think you can have is, I don't think you can be an objectivist about a given domain and a local relativist about that domain.
Okay. I mean, okay. On the different domains, then it's fine. Yeah. Well, that makes sense about one domain. Okay. I was thinking more in the general scope of. But yeah, it would have to be.
Right, because in a way, the relativist position involves a denial of the objective claim.
Yeah.
Relativism involves the denial that certain kinds of claims are objectively true, and so that's why you can't have both of them with respect to the same.
But in the world, you can in different domains you can have different views. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Zach.
Is it fairly universally accepted that you use local relativism in terms of things like aesthetics? Because it's a bit difficult to say that one color is objectively better than another color. Say, if I say that green is the most superior of colors.
Yeah, certainly that kind of view. There'd be very few people who would want to defend a kind of objectivist account of that. Yeah. And now within aesthetics itself, it's more complicated. So I think that a kind of relativism about aesthetics is probably fairly common, although I do think that many philosophers who work in aesthetics do want to have some kind of account of better and worse works of art, but that they may be willing to say that the standards by which things are better or worse within art are dependent on facts about human beings, and maybe facts about human beings that could change over time, so that these aren't universal in the way, say, the laws of physics are supposed to be. So yeah, the more a domain is specific to human beings, the more you are likely to find people willing to advocate a kind of relativism. Or the greater to the extent that something is more clearly an expression of culture, I think. Yeah. So, right. So Nagel talks about how we sometimes engage in self-criticism, right? Sometimes we can read a book, or by learning a bit about history or about our culture, we can come to realize that, hey, you know what? I happen to think this way about this topic because of the way I was raised, right? Because of what my parents said a lot as I was a kid, when I was a kid, or because of more general cultural trends that I've been brought up believing. Sometimes if you travel a lot to other countries, you can sort of start to realize some of the things that you tend to take for granted that are a kind of accident of history, right? That, like, the fact that we drive on one side of the road as opposed to the other, maybe certain norms about how you're supposed to behave at the dinner table, what topics are appropriate to raise, that kind of stuff. You can come to realize, oh, you know what? This is just an expression of something very contingent, very local. It easily could have been otherwise. And you can cease to regard yourself as having a kind of objective belief about that. But the issue that Nagel is concerned with is when these sorts of attempts at self-criticism, these processes that we go through where we realize that we might not be fully objective about this or that, when those are pushed to the limit, right? Where you're asked to entertain the possibility that all of your beliefs are just historically, culturally contingent expressions that have no more general justification, right? So I have a couple of examples on the slide here. This is actually similar to what I was just saying about moral or political beliefs merely being expressions of your own particular education, your own particular time and place. But sometimes you get people arguing that no, actually all of your beliefs are like that. And it's here that Nagel sort of says, well, can we really make sense of this? Because on the one hand, we have the subjectivist who offers this kind of line, offering a picture of the world, the way things are. Human beings grow up in these kinds of circumstances with these sorts of influences. And that leads them to have these kinds of beliefs. And where the circumstances differ, the beliefs differ. Right? That's a claim about the way the world is. And yet, the claims that are being made, the picture of the world as this way, where human beings are just all their beliefs are just products of the particular time and place in which they were raised and have no wider validity. That picture undermines our ability to come to the knowledge that the world is this way, right? So on the one hand, there's a picture about the way the world is and a claim about the consequences of that picture for our ability to have knowledge or justification. But then if that really were the case, we wouldn't be able to arrive at this picture of the world. At least we couldn't have any general justification for believing that the world is this way. Okay, so and it is true that if you look at authors who argue this way, they appeal to things like psychology, history, cultural anthropology in making their case. As I said last time, you'll probably encounter this kind of line of thinking when you go to college. But Nagel's trying to claim that there's a limit to the this self-criticism. There's a limit to our ability to, as it were, remove ourselves from our own way of thinking and get a view of ourselves from the outside. But Sam, yeah.
It's sort of along the lines is that it seems like to say that what Jacob was saying about, like, or what you were saying about meta languages and things like it does seem like the claim that everything, like, there can be no real true knowledge but like that is a statement that you say is true knowledge. It does seem like that there is something different about that statement, though. It really, I feel like it's sort of like inescapable to lump that in with.
You have to lump that in with the others? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying it seems a little bit, not lazy, but too simple to be able to just say that makes the argument not correct. I don't know.
Well, look, what's wrong with simple refutations? So this is something that you've made this move several times throughout the year, where you said that something seems too simple, and I find myself wondering to what extent that's really a criticism.
Well, not that it's too simple, but it does seem like there is something inherently different about that statement.
Okay, what is it?
Not that it's I don't know. If I had that answer, I would certainly be good, but
I mean, it is a statement about the way things are, is it not?
Yeah, it is. But okay, whatever. I don't know.
And yet, but look, if it's a statement about the way things are, then you want to ask, okay, well, that's a pretty interesting claim. I mean, that's a pretty bold claim about the way things are. I don't think you should just believe it because it's kind of, I mean, look, there's something that's kind of captivating about these kinds of claims. There's no denying that. I think that a lot of people are attracted to these kinds of claims because they have they're kind of radical sounding, and they sound like the kind of thing that someone who bucks the trend would say. But that's not a reason to believe them, right? You got a general claim about our cognitive abilities. You want to ask, well, why should I believe that? And the problem is, and I don't think we should make it exempt from that question, right? I don't think it should be exempt from the question, why should I believe that? And then you've kind of presented the person who makes the claim with a challenge to provide reasons. And the problem is, the picture of the world they've presented seems to leave them without the ability to give those reasons. That's the problem. And I think putting it this way, I think it allows you to say, well, it is a different kind of claim. So Sam, here's a way. I'll offer you a way you might want to try to say that it's a different kind of claim. And it is kind of along the lines of what I was saying in connection with logic. So you might want to distinguish a level at which we just talk about the world, right? So trees are over there, people are over here, people did this at this time and not at other times, right? These are sort of, as it were, direct claims about the world. But then you might identify claims that are about, this is going to be a little tricky, but maybe about not the world per se, but about the way people represent the world or the way people think about the world. And so maybe what the subjectivist is making a point about is making a claim about all those, as it were, first level claims, that none of those are justified. Okay. But then you have to ask, okay, so we can't have justification regarding our beliefs about the way the world is. But apparently we are able to have knowledge about how human beings think about the world, how they represent the world, how they talk about the world. And that's a coherent possibility. I don't deny that. But I think you're going to have trouble giving an account of these two different kinds of knowledge. In one case, coming to form beliefs about the way the world is versus how you come to have beliefs about how human beings come to think about the world or come to represent the world. Why is it that one mechanism can be reliable, but the other is not? Okay, that's a kind of challenge, right? If you want to run that sort of tiered view of it, look, that's good. I mean, that's certainly better than just the generic, totally general claim where you're, drawing no important distinction. But you do face a kind of challenge of how to identify these two different mechanisms of belief formation and explain why, even though one is not objective, the other might be objective or reliable or something.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily a subjectivist, and if I was, my claims would certainly be more like they wouldn't be based on if it was cool or not.
Well, good, good, because I think that for a lot of people of early college age, I think that fundamentally that is the explanation for some commitment to this. So. But good. I'm glad to hear it. And look, please understand that if I'm coming off as a little aggressive about this, it's because this is something that I unfortunately feel the need to fight a little bit because it's a little bit of a the minority view sometimes has to speak a little louder kind of thing. Yeah. So.
Yeah. No, I think that sort of my interest in like relativism is more interested in like I'm interested in like sociology and anthropology, and certainly in that local level, it seems like relativism like stands pretty strong.
Yeah. Well, look, and
But that's not
we'll
really
get
what
into that a little bit more
yeah.
when we do. Well, on your day, that James Rachel's paper is you're gonna like it. You're gonna be, well, you might not agree with him, but you're gonna like the topic and you're gonna be interested in the argument, I think. And we'll get more into that kind of cultural relativism at that point.
Okay.
Cool. So, sorry, I'll go to you in just a second, Zach. But I just want to try to say again that, look, if you want to hold the kind of relativist claim about a bunch of other claims, you want to make that a different kind of claim, that's fine. I think that's a better move than those who wouldn't are making, but I do think you still have some work to do if you want to pursue that. And I just wanted to try to lay out what, in a general way, that work might involve. Okay, cool. Yeah, Zach.
So we might be stepping back a little bit, but with the claim that subjectivists make that our beliefs are contingent or influenced by our cultures or how we are raised, why does that mean that they are wrong or right? It just means that they're influenced, but that they can't be right or wrong, because you have entirely different societies that have very different cultural influences, but still come to similar conclusions, especially about things like math. I remember a couple of years ago in a math class, a teacher showed me, I can't remember what it's called. You guys know the old math thing where you have a tree that's 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 3, 3, 1, and it's adding them all together? Our teacher showed us one that had been written in Japan millennia, or maybe not millennia, just centuries ago, and it was before Europe and Japan had mixed, so it was entirely different cultures coming to the same conclusion, convergently, I guess would be the term for it. So my question is, even if a belief is influenced by society, as a subjectivist would claim, why can't it be an objectively correct belief or an objectively incorrect belief or an objectively correct system of belief that might have been influenced differently, but it still eventually comes to the correct conclusion?
Yeah, Jacob, was that a hand that you indicated you wanted to respond?
It's more like after. Respond to
Okay.
me first.
So, no, good. So there's something called the genetic fallacy. I think it was in the long list I gave you guys early in this class, but it's the fallacy of saying that because a belief has a certain kind of source, maybe culture or history or whatever, that it is therefore either true or false, right? That it doesn't follow from considerations about the source. It doesn't always follow that the belief is thereby better or worse, true or false, right? So I think it is absolutely possible that even if a belief emerged in a particular social historical context, it could nevertheless be true. And that is it. I think what you're talking about there is Pascal's triangle. I think that's what it is. Yeah. And that's pretty interesting. I had not heard that there were there was an independent discovery of that far preceding it. That's cool. But I suppose what sometimes when people point out that it arose in a particular context, social, political, historical context, cultural context, there often will add the claim that the people who believe it merely because of that very contingent fact about when they learned it, when they were raised. And in that sense, it's supposed to undermine their justification for believing it. It's supposed to undermine their claim to know that thing, right? It's just like if you, and in some cases this is right? If you say things like, liberal democracy is the best system, or whatever, and you say that merely because you grew up hearing that, well, you might be right, but you aren't really justified in your claim to be right, because you're merely expressing what others have said. In order to be justified, I think you do have to subject your belief to critical scrutiny. And this is one of the places where I think learning about relativism can be a good thing, because it's the kind of thing that maybe increases your self-awareness about the sources of some of your beliefs. Right? I think it's good to learn about these ideas that, well, gosh, how much of what I believe is really just a reflection of what my teacher said, right? And I shouldn't believe something merely because a teacher said it. I mean, in some cases, there's not much of an alternative. Maybe it's that the teacher said it and it was in a book, because you can't find out everything for yourself. There's some things we got to take for granted, or we have to take on the word of an authority figure, right? But strictly speaking, you're only justified if that authority figure is herself or itself a reliable source. So I mean, I think these are good things to worry about and think about. But I suppose I find Nagel's case compelling, that if this is being presented as a kind of global argument for the claim that we can't ever be justified, or we can't ever have objective knowledge, then I think it doesn't work. I mean, this goes back to a point that, Zach, you touched on last time, namely that, look, to have an argument for a position is to have a set of premises that lead to that position via some reasoning. And that reasoning will employ principles of reasoning, rules of justification. And so a person who gives an argument is betraying a kind of commitment to principles of reasoning that they regard as binding. They regard as things that should persuade not only the listener, but persuade the person offering the argument. And because of that, there are limits to what you can provide an argument for. I think there's something kind of deep and important about that.
This is challenging to think about.
Jacob, do you still have your?
Oh, well, we kind of covered part of it, but it was like, if you're gonna say that your beliefs are just based off of your culture's beliefs and that's where you get them from, well, I think if you look at, I don't know, I'm thinking like a sort of a cause and effect sort of thing. If you keep going back in history, you're going to reach a point where someone had to use some reasoning to come up with the thought to start the chain. The chain doesn't go on forever. Like with humans, we know that. I mean, at some point we weren't human, so we had to figure out some things for ourselves.
Right. Good. So I think a good case of this is our kind of, Western science. And look, surely it's true that for many of us, many of the beliefs we have about the world, especially the ones that aren't simply gained from observation, things we learn about physics, things we learn about cosmology and astronomy. These are things that we have not done the work ourselves to claim justified belief in those things. It is true, this is kind of the point I was making before, that we believe a lot of the things we believe, like E equals mc squared. I've never done the math to check that out. I've never done the experiments to check that out. And so to a certain extent, I'm not, in a certain way, I'm not justified in believing that E equals mc squared. But at least when I just look at my own history and why I have come to believe that. But if we go back, as you're saying, Jacob, and this is good, we look at the history of science, and we look at the ways in which the theory within which, E equals mc squared is embedded was developed, and how it was this long process of testing out ideas, getting rid of certain ideas. Other ideas survived the challenge, and those gave rise to new ideas which face new challenges, right? There's a fairly long history of the development of these ideas and it's that history of development that is part of the justification for believing this picture of the world. If it was really just human beings like sort of appeared in a certain context and started saying these things, then indeed we wouldn't be justified in believing them. But Western science has an interesting history of being tested out, being certain parts of it being rejected. I think that's important to the claim that we know some stuff about the world, even very tiny and very distant parts of our world. So yeah, I think that's a good point. That's a long-winded way of saying I think that's a good point, Jacob.
Thank you.
Yeah, Sam.
So this is like a case or this is like a moral relativist case. So say humans go to another planet, and there's an alien race who
we still have to get to Zach's thing.
Eat their babies?
Yeah, who eat their babies.
And they say it's delicious.
And yeah. So that would seem incredibly wrong to us, but is that universally wrong? The thing about it seems to imply there's a universal constant for morality.
Right. That's what the objectivist thinks. Yeah. Well. So you could be. You could think that some moral principles, even though they're objective, when applied to different contexts, end up giving different rulings because of the particular differences of the context. I know that was confusing in the abstract, so let me try to think of an example.
It sounded like relativism, kind of.
Well, but it's not relativism. So this is another thing. This is another reason I think these are important issues to talk about, Sam, because I think actually a lot of times when people say that they're a relativist, if you really investigate what they believe, it turns out they're not. But there's something more like a what's sometimes called a contextualist. There's a commitment to an objective principle, but it's just that single principle has different consequences in different circumstances.
All right.
But if you're committed to an objective principle like that, you're not really a relativist.
Okay.
I'll keep thinking of an example, but Zach, I'll go to you.
Or I had a question about if something would be considered an example. It is wrong to eat other people unless they are already dead and you are starving to death.
Yeah, I think that's a perfectly acceptable objectivist rule. Being an objectivist doesn't mean that your laws have to be totally simple. Just like, and we really are starting to get into the debate we'll get into here in a couple of weeks. Look, the laws of physics aren't simple. We often learn simple statements of them. You know, things like all massive objects fall to the surface of the Earth when released at a certain rate, right? Well, is that really universally true? No. If there is a force moving upward against the object dropped, it doesn't fall at that rate. So to actually specify the laws of nature, you have to add all these provisos, these special conditions. They only are true. A lot of laws of physics are only true of the frictionless plane, right? Once you start adding in friction and other particular local facts, the laws don't hold anymore. Rather, a modified version of the law holds. And I don't see why moral laws couldn't be like that. So I'm trying to remember. I used this frictionless plane metaphor before. Something like the laws of morality, like the laws of physics, only hold of the frictionless plane. At least in their simple versions.
But morality seems to be.
I don't want to.
It seems to bleed to have to exist in and outside of a frictionless plane. I don't know. Like, think about if humans didn't exist, would morality be an exist? Like, so think about there's no beings who have a sense of self.
Right.
In the universe, would morality still exist? Like, is that, you know what I mean?
Well, look, if this is a little bit like if there were no creatures who could perceive color, would objects be colored?
Yeah.
Well, in some sense they wouldn't be, but maybe in another sense they would be, namely they have the properties in virtue of which once those color perceivers come into existence, they can start perceiving the colors.
Oh, and could it also be like just because you can't see color, or like or like not just you, but a group of individuals can't see color, doesn't mean it's not there, because there might be some other creature or something that can see color. So
yeah, and maybe there's such a thing as moral perception, and some people have a kind of moral blindness. This is actually a view about sociopaths, is that they lack an ability to perceive the force of moral considerations, but that's a little bit like being colorblind.
Yeah.
that would just be kind of funny though. Like, I'm morally opposed to the color blue. I don't know. I just.
Sociopath.
But I agree.
So could you make the statement that you can morally reprehensible actions can be performed and can exist without people that can perceive morals, but only people who can perceive morals can be held responsible for them? Like a lion can kill something, but can't be considered morally reliable for that because it's a lion. It doesn't perceive morality.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's a perfectly coherent view. Yeah. There could be, before humans came into existence, there were all kinds of horrible things, morally reprehensible things happening, but no one was really morally responsible for those things.
It seems weird.
Well,
That's all I have to say. That seems weird.
It does seem a little weird. I agree.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I think that every well worked out philosophical position has some consequences that seem weird.
All right.
Maybe that's one that's too weird, though. You know?
Yeah.
I think. It's I don't know. It kind of like It kind of
Is space empty? There was no one there to fill it.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of thinking of it. It's like we can't on the spectrum of colors we can only see a little bit, but we know that the rest of this exists, but we aren't aware of it. So, but it still is out there. So.
I feel like we shouldn't use color for morale.
Okay, maybe that wasn't good. That's kind of what I was thinking.
I feel like color and morality are
different.
Morality. I don't know.
I agree, by the way. Color and morality are different, but.
Yeah. In the way that I don't know, procedure.
I don't want to. I don't want to say that morality is objective. It bothers me to say that it's an objective thing.
Right. So we're talking about right or wrong when we're talking about morality. So
Jacob. My question is, would it make you feel better about saying morality is objective if you could also say that you don't have to know what is objectively morally correct? You just have to have a sense of that things could be objectively morally correct.
So you're setting an example that's there is the morally correct thing, but often we just don't know what it is. Is that But you're saying that there is one thing that is morally that I don't like that. I don't like it.
I still think the circumstantialist that we mentioned earlier. I think it's a little bit misleading to say that there is one thing that is morally correct, and that's a harsh rule because saying killing is wrong objectively and all the time. That is too steadfast a rule, but that doesn't mean that killing is always objectively wrong in certain situations.
If morality exists, would it be?
I hate morality.
It could be said that all actions are either right or wrong, right?
No, I think you could hold that there are neutral actions.
Okay, But it seems like,
is there any way
if there was if it would be there's a point where something either falls either right or wrong, and neutral actions. I feel like when we say neutral actions, that would be a right action because it's non-wrong. It's a right action because it's not wrong.
Okay, how about this? Actions are either morally permissible or not. How about that?
Yeah. And
so there are morally permissible things that are not. It's morally permissible for me to skip down the street.
Yeah.
Although someone might see that and go, "Well, that ain't right," or something. It's morally permissible, but it doesn't have a moral weight. It's not as though it's. That's all I have to say about that. Yeah, Zach, and then we're probably gonna have to wrap things up here.
What if we modified the statement and said that every single action in the universe has its own moral rule about whether or not it's morally permissible? For instance, saying that Morgan Waldhagen skipping down the street at 9:35 on April 1st, 2015 is morally permissible. Because then that gets you out of the way of deciding whether there are variations in what is morally permissible or not, because then you have an objective rule for every action. We just have no way of knowing what the objective rule for every action is.
Wow. I guess I can't rule that out, but well, look, I would at least want to say, look, there's got to be some way in which similar acts have similar rules, by and large, right? It can't be like changing the time at which I skip down the street by 2 minutes can't radically affect its moral character, unless I've been told that by doing that you'll start the next genocidal, rule of someone. Yeah. Anyway, Jacob, sorry,
Is there a way to deny morality? Like, is it? Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna call timeout on our conversation. This has been a really good sort of preparatory conversation for our next topic. So I had a bunch more slides, but I just didn't feel like I needed to go to them. So you can download them and have a look if you like. So next time, it's just an introduction to part 7 in our book. It's just a short little reading. There's no journal entry for next time because, don't forget, your first draft of your research papers are due Sunday night. But what we're turning to next is indeed ethics, and we're going to start with this meta-ethical debate about the nature of moral facts. So this has been a great sort of preparation. I think the next time you have a serious reading, you'll get more out of that reading because of the discussion we've had right now. And it should be, I think if this is any indication, it should be a fun time for discussion. So, okay, guys, that's it for today. Great job. That was interesting. And yeah, good luck on your papers. And I'll see you Monday.
So,
Sam, did you want to say something?
I said peace out.
Okay, peace out.
Morality seems to be very messy.
I think it's less messy than you might think.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's...
Well, look, there's a difference between... There's a way in which the philosophical discussion can be pretty non-messy, but when you get into debates about particular issues, then it does get messy because particular issues have all kinds of particular conditions that make it harder to come to a
And I
clear...
don't know, and I feel like if you accept like a little local relativism thing over about morality, that's going to make it harder to argue about morality if you have more subjective...
Yeah. No. The problem is, what's the point of arguing?
Oh, true.
It seems
There's
like
no point to arguing if it's relative or subjective.
Arguing about what ice cream flavor is best.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway. All right, guys. Sorry, I got to get to my next class.
Yeah. Yeah.
They like to tell me how many seconds I'm late every day. So. Okay. See you guys.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.